for having given me a chance. I mean, introduced me to the college and given me a chance to talk in this webinar. I would thank Mr. Kumar Sambhav sir for introducing me and instilling the confidence in me for giving you a valuable lecture. As you know, COVID has hit us hard, and we are trying to, every day, we are trying to mitigate the effects of it and then trying to live above the damage it has done to us in terms of economy as well as our daily life. So there is no easy way to see through this, but to look at it academically, structurally, first of all, and then see what are the things that led to the kind of situations that we are going through now. Now, why we are talking about trends, first of all, this is particularly for the students and secondary for all the participants. As you know, trends are something that need to be understood. It is the education that all corporates need to have, irrespective of which field they are from, to make business possible. It is the trends that tell us what is going to happen in the future so that we can prepare ourselves and brace ourselves sometimes and then know what is to be done in terms of the kind of money and energy that we invest. Being from a fashion background, I would say that some of my examples, case studies, not some, I have only one, but it is to demonstrate very easily, because fashion is something that everybody can understand, even if you don't have a technical background in it. Things like fashion can easily be seen and understood. The patterns can be easily identified. So what I will be doing is giving you a case study on fashion, particularly to enlighten upon you as to what we are going through or what we can expect. What are the kind of radical changes that we need to prepare ourselves for. I will be sharing a slide which is about, I think, 36 slides in number, most of it which is pictures, so we don't have much to read. So I will start sharing it. I hope sharing is enabled. Yeah. If you can see this, can you tell me, one of you, can you unmute and tell me if it is visible?
Yes,
Quite
sir.
visible.
Yes, it's
All right,
visible.
all right. Yeah, yeah. Okay, thank you. So, formally, I would like to welcome all of you to this session on post-COVID trends. I don't know whether it is the right word to use at this moment, because every day we are learning something from it. It is too early to even assume that we know enough to comment about it. But we have seen patterns. We have seen how things are progressing. We also have a certain idea of what kind of uncertainties we can expect in the future. So I guess we can start by calling it a post-COVID trend for the reason that the world after the recovery from COVID is going to be very different, quite different from what we see now. To impress upon the field of education, which is trends research and analysis, it allows organizations around the world to assess their operations, predict and prepare for the future business. This is understood by everyone. I just wanted to start with this slide. Now, I'm trying to bifurcate this particular industry, this particular knowledge of trends reading into three. The first one being micro, the second being macro, and the third being mega trends. Mega trends are, large, very huge movements which happen in space. Micro trends are basically what the market is behaving, what the market is bringing forth, what are the kind of products and services that is coming anew. And these may last for from 1 to 5 years. This may be very short-lived, like a fad, what we call a fad. It rises up very quickly and then ends very fast. But sometimes it goes on till up to 5 years. I mean, these are still short-term because it is created by responding to the kind of responses that we get from the people, from the market, from consumers and customers. The second one is macro trends. Like you can see, it is the need of the consumer, which is not very visible. It takes a lot of effort, a lot of research and surveys to understand what is in the minds of people. So it can be technically called as a consumer trend. And unlike micro trends, it is not very tangible. It is not very palpable that you can ascertain very fast. Mega trends, it requires a huge amount of research. It need to be looked into in terms of all kind of effects that the world is undergoing, what is affecting the world as a whole in terms of technology, in terms of population, in terms of urbanization, globalization. Sometimes pandemics like this, pandemic is a a pandemic like this is very new, but we have had things like wars. That is why I'm taking an example of war particularly. It has changed the mindsets of people, the way we behave in a larger sense. So as you see the map, you can see this. The mega trend is that on a larger perspective, it's a huge movement, like a huge organism, which is supported by, or which is percolated into smaller rungs by macro trends, which is the behavior of people, and then micro trends, how the industries respond to these behavior of people in terms of their products and services. So this is a fair idea. I don't intend to educate you more on this. Just try to understand that micro trends are market trends, macro trends are needs of consumer, and mega trends are powerful transformative forces which affects the world as a whole. Now, these are certain examples of mega trends alone that I would like to share, just to make you understand. I don't think you would have understood what a mega trend is. A trend, as we know, is a fashion trend is like a bell bottom coming back, and maybe certain things that we have undergone. I'm not particularly taking any reference to it, but then this is not what a mega trend is. That is what I'm trying to tell you. Megatrend would be something like a rapid urbanization. It's a megatrend. That looking at it, it's about the space and accommodation that will become a major issue in major cities. Why? Because more and more people are moving to the cities in search of jobs. And it is predicted that by the end of 2050, about 70% of the world's population will be living in cities. There's also a prediction that there is going to be, I'm sorry.
Fine, sir.
Participants, I would request all of you to keep your
Okay. It's okay.
microphones.
I thought it was something somebody said to me. Sorry about that. Yeah. It is also predicted that we are going to have 41 major cities. It is not just major cities like New York or Tokyo or London, Paris or Milan. We're going to have 41 major cities. This is a prediction that is that is projected, keeping in mind the kind of mass migrations that is happening towards cities for better jobs, for better prospects. Does this undermine the kind of agricultural base that we have? It cannot be said that way. It has a very butterfly effect, as we call it, the chaos theory. As we know, you cannot see it in a linear sense. You have to always think of it in multiple factors which affects the same thing in multiple different dimensions. So what we say is there are going to be 41 major cities, and there's going to be rapid urbanization is one of the mega trends that is projected for 2050. And only 30% lives in urban areas. In 1950, only 30% lived in urban areas, but now it is going to be diametrically shifted. We have demographics and social change, labor shortage, demand on healthcare, and changing consumer demands. The global population is going to increase by 1 billion. It is said that it is going to be 7 billion plus by the end of 2030. We see it as a threat, but in certain sense, like Professor Hans Rosling, who is an economist in himself, in his field, has shown us how the myth of population overload uh, is uh, is a myth, and how it is not going to be exploding after a certain stage. it is going to equalize, and it may flatten the line into becoming a constant. But there are fears that we are driven by of shortage of resources that may be because of certain other reasons. So what megatrends help us in ascertaining is to get the right info about these fears and aspirations that we have about our future. So these are certain things. I mean, there are a few more like climatic changes and resource scarcity, crop failure, widespread flooding, destroyed habitats, and energy shortage. These are not projections made out of speculation. These are calculated. Like there are so many agencies in the world which deals with these on an everyday basis, including KPMG, McKinsey. All these agencies project. They do in very in-depth research. They take samples by the thousands and publish these reports. These things come from that. Um, Technological breakthrough is another one megatrend. Shifting of economic power. Like we know that the China has been the country of China has been gaining power not in terms of military but in terms of economy. They have had their own very clever strategies which show them rising from a very meager third world country, I would like to say, into something that could challenge America's existence. They even were trying to execute some kind of digital currency for their own, which will mitigate and which will make dollar irrelevant for them. So these are the kind of major shifts that is happening, major plans that are happening in China. But what I want you to understand is these were done probably sometime back. As you can see, it is IMF estimates of 2016 that are the data feeds for such reports. But what happened in 2019 end was quite disruptive. It was not at all planned. Nobody expected this to happen. So there was no megatrends. There were no micro trends that were put in place for us to understand or behave in any manner to welcome that situation. It's not a welcome situation, but to expect and be ready for that situation. So what we see, this is technically where it starts from. I would request everybody to please have a paper and a pencil in your hand so that you please note down whatever is unclear or you have a question for, and which will be posed in the end of the session in the question answer. During the question answer, war footing is the apt term. We know what war footing is. We've used it multiple times, even though many of us may not have engaged in an actual warfare for our country. War footing technically means that it is a condition or status of a military or any organization when operating under a state of emergency or under a state of war. The state of war is existing. It is quite disruptive. For example, we have, imagine I'm a company and I have projected business for the next 5 years, and I know that it is going to grow 5 to 10% annually. This is my optimistic projection. And then suddenly, in the second year, the entire thing is toppled. No projections, no planning that I have been doing and working towards is going to work. I suddenly realize that. What do I do? This is the correct situation that we are in. Some of us did not even have the full appreciation of our situation because many of the countries, some people in the sense the world as a whole, because countries went out their daily course without getting the threat of what is in place. And such places have actually suffered major losses in the past, but now they are recouping and they're recovering from it, like Spain, Italy for that matter. USA have been, I would say, been very reckless in such a situation, and they do not probably see the larger impact of the virus. Being a country which is considered to be the first world country and which has very pristine healthcare facilities, USA has failed because nobody saw this coming. Nobody expected. Nobody had a protocol in place as to what is to be this war footing. It is disruptive. We will go ahead in the presentation with full appreciation of what this word means. Now, COVID-19 has potentially divided, like we have a division in history, the BC and AD, or we have the post-World War and pre-World War. Uh, Technically, COVID has done that to the world. We have a pre-COVID and a post-COVID era because many of the things that was normal to us when COVID hit us would not be the same. And some businesses may never cease to exist. I mean, they may never exist at all after the pre-COVID era when we recoup back into our lifestyle. In recorded human history, there is no example for us to, there are no lessons that we can learn from and then act. So this is, we are making history as we go. We are learning to do what must be done with whatever information that we have. An advantage is that we have had a good advancement into scientific knowledge that is the biggest advantage. Whereas in the case of World War or the Spanish flu, the world was not ready to accommodate or deal with its ill effects in a scientific manner. So this would be the biggest advantage that we as a human race would have at this point of time. We discussed the crisis of COVID pandemic is not due to a patternized economic slowdown. This what we said. We never could expect, and it fundamentally challenged the conventions, which we will talk about in depth in the further slides, that we have been following since the Second World War. This is the accepted norm. This is the accepted fact that everything that we are doing now is a norm that has been established during the end of World War II, and we have been continuing it. For instance, I'm again coming back to fashion because it is very easy to understand the kind of business that we do in fashion, the designers, designer wear, the luxury brands, the kind of many divisions of wear that we have, the work wear, we have a leisure wear, we have a sport wear. All this was instituted. All this was instituted from the time of World War, which progressed, which evolved in a sequential manner. So everything that we have done now, everything that we are living in is a thing, a normality that was created post World War II. Now suddenly this happens, COVID hits and we are forced to shut down. We are shut down either voluntarily, expecting to come back after some time, or we have lost that business irrecoverably. We have closed for good. This is what we have. And lockdown was imposed on many countries, on many people as a um, means to mitigate and control and contain the virus, the spread of virus, so that we can at least wait till a solution for this can be found out. But what it did is it the lockdown ensured that we are socially distanced or physically distanced in certain sense. Social distancing for me at this point of time seems very apt title for it, though I disagreed with it in the beginning. I thought it was physical distancing, but social distancing is the right word because every sphere of activity that we have been doing socially is distanced now. People are not doing it together anymore, and we don't know how it is going to be in the new normal after this thing comes down. It is done again so that the unchecked transmission does not happen. The virus does not transmit without our knowledge or without our control. It doesn't go beyond our control. This was a major step, much needed, but it is not a solution to anything because the economy has hit very, very bad. There must have been some kind of planning for to understand how economy can be brought back into action once the lockdown is lifted. But right now we have just ended it and we have just disrupted it, but with no plans of how it can be mitigated, the effects can be mitigated so that people can come back to economy. People are economy. The economy is not something that is there in the banks. How people spend, economy depends on how people spend. You are aware of it. I mean, I'm not a person to talk about numbers and mathematics and economy much, but then this is what ground reality is. Economy is in the way people spend money. So long as people keep spending, the economy has some kind of life. But that has not been happening in many places due to many reasons. We are not blaming anyone here, but let us try to get a full appreciation of what the situation holds for us. Now, I would like to get into a case study. This is again abrupt into, because here I would want you to understand certain things before we go ahead. This is a case in World War II, with the world wars, particularly when men had to go for wars. That was the norm. Men were, the Y chromosome, so to speak, and which has aggression in them, who have probably more physical strength in them. They were sent for wars, and they were the people who were working in factories, working in the fields, working in all kind of jobs. And women were predominantly homemakers. Right now we can't even imagine such a thing, because in villages maybe we'll find such a thing, or in certain places, very isolated clusters, we'll find this behavior. But in America, we can't imagine such a situation when women never worked at this point of time. But there was a time when women never worked outside of their homes. They were homemakers predominantly. They ate from what their husbands brought home. So this was the case. And suddenly, what happened is, when everybody, predominantly men, went for war in the front, women were compelled to work in the factories, largely in arms and ammunition factories, as you can see in this picture. I want you to observe their costume, or their the garment that they're wearing at that point of time. It is predominantly what people would wear at home. It is not a factory working uniform. So they were abruptly put from their homes, brought from their homes to work into factories, given training, necessary training, so that they know what to do. Probably there was no confidence in people also that they would do this job properly, but they turned out to be wonderful workers. This was a new information. This is one of the things which we need to understand while dealing with unforeseen situations. How you know on the verge of extinction, or on the verge of grave danger, people adapt and learn to cope with the new world order. When the war was over, now people worked. I mean, women came to work, and then men went for war, right? But when the men came back to reclaim their space in the industry, women said, "No, we are not going back. We are here to stay, because we know, we realize now, which we never realized earlier because we were never allowed to. We now realize that we are capable of many things that we were not told we were. So we are not going to go back. We know that this works for us, and this is a good revenue earning mechanism for us, so we are going to stay." And this permanently changed the way the world worked. Now we know why, and how it has changed the world. Women are one of the biggest working forces in the world, though it is not equal to men. Still, we are getting into the empowerment mode. And see this picture. I hope you can see it. This is the way things changed for women. This was never expected. I want you to understand that. You should never say, see the way the costumes changed. It is more like shirts which men wore, though it is having its own left and right orientation. Men's button is on the right side, and women's button happen on the left side. This is the only demarcation probably you can look at in a shirt, except the styling of it. Very slopey shoulders, maybe puff sleeves. All these things can indicate that it is a woman's blouse. But they were tending towards becoming what was accepted as power culture at that point of time. women riding by motorcycles. She's a messenger girl during war, I think in USA. So things change for women for good. This was the disruption that we were talking about. And see how things changed. People who have seen Titanic, particularly, must have seen the costume that people are wearing in the Alani stock photo on the left hand side of the screen. Uh, this is very cumbersome. They're even wearing corsets inside. Corset is supposed to make the woman look lean and narrow waisted like an hourglass. And it was putting on these clothes were a big task. It involved lots of patience and a lot of crafting, technically, and grooming. So once you put on something for breakfast, for lunch you change it and then dress up again, and then you have something else for dinner. So it was, by the time it was the lunch was over, it was time to get ready for dinner. It was kind of a very mindless, you know, or what do you say, Orwellian kind of a routine that people were following. But see the people on the right hand side, they're more free. Things changed after that also, but then the change from the corseted look to a free waist and free movement, and hemlines rising, and the garments getting more superfluous and attractive, feminine for that matter, is seen, is palpable. This is a representation of what the styles were in World War I and World War II. Again, what we see changed in the World War I, what you see on the left hand side. Again, that's called the particularly the flapper style, which you see in Charlie Chaplin movies of that era. And it is very sensuous. These are very flowing material, with embroidery on it, very feminine lines. But when you shift it to the right side, you see that it's all boxy, very pointed, very power dressing concept. This is the way it changed. Why did this change? This changed because of the war. As simple as it. That's what I'm trying to tell you. This may never have happened, or may have taken longer time in many different ways to happen had the war not happened. I'm not advocating that the war is a good thing, but it affected a lot of change. And this is just about fashion. Let's talk about automobile industry. There's so many giant strides, giant leaps that has done in the automobile industry in terms of building, in terms of design sense. Bauhaus and all those things that came and which preached minimalism, which advocated functionality, which made the world into a sense based place, sensible place, than just something that would appreciate art, like in the Baroque or the Rococo or the Art Nouveau. All these things, all these design movements and art movements came in a sequence, and what stayed was functional. Of course, we are having this balance between art and aesthetics and function every time we indulge in design, but this is how it evolved. So the economic impact of post-world war was that when women were working alongside men, the families doubled their income. Men earned, women also earned probably equal sums of uh, salary. And this made women more independent in her purchasing power. So what that means is business responded to this opportunity by providing a range of things. Right now, where we stand, we know that the market is flooded with consumer goods and other merchandises for the women mostly, because they know, I mean, they have the ability to express more in terms of aesthetics. So it's flooded, the market is flooded with merchandises and goods for women. This is the order that has been prevailing since World War and until now. Now, in during COVID, also, we are trying to start reading from the kind of responses that uh, emerged, patterns of behavior that we can see. among people, and how people behaved and how businesses responded to it. This is a screenshot from the app in Shorts, where Elon Musk is saying that panic is not only causing hoarding of groceries but ventilators, which means that groceries were being hoarded by people, thinking that there's not going to be anything on the stand or to purchase, they're going to hunger. This was the initial reaction, the first reaction of COVID. But later, people realized that somehow the transportation mechanism, the supply chain is not completely shut down. Supplies are coming, but not in the way it was before. So they need to preserve, conserve, and then use their money sensibly, use their resources sensibly. You should not waste anything at all. And such kind of things came, and a lot of uh, it changed a lot of mindsets. A lot of purchasing behavior changed. A lot of industries started readjusting to the new changed world order. Uh, we will see in the coming slides. This is one of the very peculiar um, response that I found. One is that the person saying, CRED founder is saying that we may not return to the kind of work culture that we ever had. We had an work culture of getting up early morning, going to the office, and going to the office required you need to get dressed, which means that you need to invest in fashion. You need to travel, which means that you need to either take a public transport or your own vehicle, which means that you're burning fuel, you're spending money on that, which also means that that requires time to travel. Sometimes if you are late, it is maybe it's because of traffic, or maybe it's because of some malfunction, and in turn you're burning fuel and you're adding to the carbon footprint of the world, which means that you are impacting the nature, ecology as a whole. And if it's in a traffic jam, you're impacting it more by burning more fuel. And there are businesses that are contributing to this kind of scenario and earning their running, contributing to the economy through that. For instance, repair and maintenance. Sometimes, in Dubai particularly, it was a phenomena when FM radios became a big hit in Dubai, in UAE particularly. That may not be a big hit in India. It is because they have to drive very large distances from one place to other sometimes, and when they're going from place to place. It's a very arid area, it's a desert area, it's not like green and lush like our country. So when they have to just drive and then wait in the traffic, sometimes get jammed in the traffic, they have nothing else to do but listen. They cannot read anything. They may not have somebody beside them to engage in a conversation. All they can do is listen. So they're opened up a huge market of listeners, who would consume FM as a consumable. So this opened up as a big thing. Similarly, each thing has a reason. Now, I would like to read something out from here. Another man from, he's an Egyptian business person. He says that it's okay if your kids' voices appear during work from home calls. I'm okay. I'm ready to suffer that. Or it's okay, if really okay, if there are some disturbances when we are talking, which means that he's okay with the idea of people working from home. This is not the case earlier. Understand this. It is not just the facility or technology that enabled it. If I'm running an organization, I want my people to be in the place I want them to be, so that I can monitor them, so that I can hold them responsible, I can hold them accountable, I can check when are they coming in, are they committed to my work. All these things were there. In the new world order, these may not hold true. This is what I'm trying to say. I'm just going to read it out for you as a part of discussion. Work from home is a new hashtag, WFH, that may continue to trend in the post-COVID era. The lockdown period has given insights into newer team dynamics in a physically absent but seamlessly connected environment. Understand that digitally connected, bigger bandwidth are a contributing factor to this situation. Office spaces, imagine, suddenly appear to be conventions that were was being followed as an unnecessary resource. It's a very expensive. It brings a lot of cost into it. When technology has made data transfer and communication effortless and affordable, and it goes on like that. I mean, could this mean office spaces may become more temporal? You may need office spaces at some point of time, but not always. So can there be a proposal of hiring office spaces whenever it is required, than maintaining it all through the year? It could impact the industries like real estate, transportation, fuel consumption. Just we discussed all these things right now. Consumption, then auto parts, repair and maintenance. Food business, restaurants. People who go to office tend to eat from outside, even though they have food from inside. It's a leisure activity. It's not born out of the need to eat for hunger. Fast food joints, office stationery, office electronics, and ancillary industries, faxes and printouts may soon be replaced by paperless communication. So what happens to that? There's a positive effect because we are not going to cut more trees. But what will happen to this industry? There's thousands of people who are engaged in that industry. They have to be repurposed. So all these things will happen. The new work culture norms is likely to spawn more people friendly. This is in terms of policies. If you need to retain, when you are away from home and working, the dynamics change. Your understanding of how people work will have to be altered. How you can assess their performance have to be altered. So a lot of new policies are going to come in when this is effected. Then there are certain other sociopathic responses, like the fear, born out of fear, born out of disgust of people breaking the rule or breaking the law. Or it may be because it may be driven in a pluralistic society because of the differences that people have among them. We have a couple taken off Rajdhani train after quarantine stamp was found on the husband's hand. He was in quarantine. He was good to go. He was found with no diseases at all. But that stamp made people to reject him from the bogie, and they did. Maharashtra man was beaten for allegedly sneezing. Imagine that. If you sneeze in public, that becomes a crime for public. A man under COVID quarantine in Hyderabad locked inside apartment by neighbors. He's in quarantine so that he doesn't go out. They don't believe him. They don't trust him. So trust factor is missing in this, and it comes to all sorts of sociopathic behavior. I'm not going to go on. I mean, you can look at it yourself. So this is how things happen. Economic impact, again, look at these screenshots. No air travel, no crowded places, no physical proximity. Everything that we know about social spaces are changing. Indigo has grounded 30 planes as government. This was in the beginning. Please mind that. It's not the issue now. It was in the beginning. Indigo grounds 30 planes as government bars international flights over coronavirus. This was in the beginning. You know this. Um, so what happened was there was flights, trains, and interstate buses, intracity buses stopped or suspended. Huge loss for transport sector. That is the snowballing. That is the chain reaction that happens. Revenues decline. Ancillary industries of service, repair, and maintenance, like I said, shuts down. Fewer requirement. Luxury class hotels shut down because in-flight crew, cabin crew, as well as travelers depend on these hotels. And luxury hotels, five-star hotels, are usually used by business class people who travel a lot and go to places for business. So what happened is luxury hotels kickstarted some home delivery services as repurposing or adapting to a new situation. It is not very effective to earn the kind of revenue that they were earning, but then at least they can still have some kind of revenue. This was, but I don't know whether it is happening still. Understand this also. According to aviation analyst Ascend, the total number of aircraft currently in service, that point of time, I mean, at any given point of time, is 23,600. This is international. And according to the Flight Trader 24, between 8,000 to 20,000 of them are always airborne. Can you see the danger in it? Danger as in the problem in it. When lockdown happened, when travel was suspended, all these planes that were in the air, the 20,000 planes that were in the air had to be brought down. Where do they park it? How will they land it? How will they maneuver it? They are supposed to be in the air. 20,000 of them are always in the air at any given point of time. Some land, some take off. This is how the logistics of this air industry, airlines industry work. So you have a problem of parking. Even if it is parked, you can't park it for airlines. Have cannot aircrafts cannot be parked for a very long time because there will be problems. Repair and maintenance problems will be there. One that is expected to fly all the time, if it is grounded for a very long time, damages will happen. It will be irrecoverable. So what certain flight operators were doing is they even flew if there was only one person on board. And we know in the old normal, whenever there was no enough seats, sufficient seats filled, sometimes we have cancellations of flights or we have reallocations of seats into some other plane and filling in. You remember, I mean, we all have had such experiences. But now people are flying with one passenger on board because that flying is required for that plane to be healthy. So these are the kind of things that are people are doing at this point of time. Uber suspends taxi services. Uber had recently fired 3,000 people, I believe. I don't know. I don't remember the exact figure. 30,000 or 3,000 or something, a huge number starting with three, had fired. They don't need it. I think Twitter uh, said that people never have to come back again into their office spaces. They can work from home permanently. That is a declaration that has happened. So these things are changing, and we need to understand the changes that is happening so that we can survive in our businesses. Every major event, this is, I mean, we will feel that this is very normal, but the kind of impact that this makes is huge. Every major event, be it Google's event, NASA launching a rocket, or first AI summit, or a game, or auto shows, all this is suspended. None of this makes sense anymore at this point of time, because we have to first survive in order to exist and live. So technology, exploration, futuristic entertainment, futuristic endeavors, entertainment, businesses, spectacle, and all cancelled or postponed. Lack of audience, lack of sales, social distancing, discrete spending of money, all these causes it to do these things. Choices are once again abruptly spiraled down to be need based. Everything is, do we need to spend so much at this point of time? Is it really required? People are saving money sometimes, and which is not a very good indication for the country's economy, because like I said, economy survives like blood in the human body. When only money, if it flows through the veins of the body of the society, will it survive. If it is not running, or if it is accumulated somewhere, it dies. Now, this is a small map which I have put forth. This is where our analysis began. These are the major trends. I would like to say that physicality. I would like to say that these are the out of all the trends, it is the physicality that is the biggest trend that requires scrutiny, because the your physical presence of accountability of for a job, or for your presence in a particular place which you have to attend to, is no longer seen as an inevitable quantity. It is a quantity that can be expended. It is a quantity that is a that incurs very high cost. It is not just because of the disease. It's not because if I'm having certain disease I will contract it to some other person. It is also to the realization, the lateral realization that also comes, is that it is not necessary for a person to be present physically there to do that job. This also, and you can see that it is also because it is connected with digital facilities somehow. And physicality, the threat of physicality, when it was high, when it was brought into picture, it made people to either sit at home or go for your deeper inquiry. Deeper inquiry is a threatening thing for us. It has been a threatening thing for us in the past, because we don't like people invading our privacy. Even in when I'm turning on this camera, and if somebody is looking at me without my knowing, that was a big threat. The Arogya Setu app was in controversy for some time now. It said that it is a surveillance mechanism. It is not a way to deal with people's privacy and their personal lives. But people are, I myself have done it, because we have to be accountable for others' lives more than ours. It has give and takes, I understand, but people are submitting to surveillance. This is one big trend that we have seen. Now, it is emerging out of physicality. Everything is emerging out of physicality. So deep inquiry goes to biotechnology, because you are putting your investments into hazmat suits. Hazmat suits sounds a very Arabic or Turkish term, but it literally means hazardous material. It's a short form for hazardous material. Hazmat suits, masks, um, sanitizers, soap solutions, testing kits, ventilators. All these things are seeing the focus is on producing and supplying these things now. So biotechnology is a big market right now. Whoever had invested in that is minting money. So biotechnology is going to dictate the kind of other certifications, like who is going to be deemed fit for working in the coming days, who is deemed fit for traveling in air. All this comes with biological testing. It also means that we may have, like metal detectors, we may have biological testing spots as an SOP, standard operating procedures, before we get into public spaces. Any public space for that matter. It can be a mall. How are malls going to be affected? We still don't know. But then I'm just seeing, I'm just hoping that it will come back, because it is a beautiful place to be as far as social life is concerned. It's a hangout place. It's not for purchasing particularly. It's a hangout place. It refreshes us. We go back happy. And it is only if the biotechnology endorses your immunity or your well-being that you're going to get into jobs anymore. It's like a passport. So immunity passport is a keyword, is a trending hashtag, and which will lead for your unemployment to be lifted, and then you get into an employment. Deeper inquiry also will take you out of a job if it is found to be virulent, if your condition is virulent. So all these things goes in a cycle, as you can see. The deep inquiry can put you into an unemployment, whereas through biotechnology to immunity passports and your curing of the disease will lead you back to employment. uh, and homebound is to do with digital. If we were not digitally connected, everything is digitally connected, digital. If it was not digitally connected, it would be very, very difficult to survive and not alone work, because work happens as an activity which is to sustain economy. But when economy itself is shutting down, what are we going to do with all this education? Where are people going to be placed after education? These are all questions even looming now. Recently there were IIT graduates who were denied opportunity for, which they had got their placements, but their job offers were retracted by some American company. I don't remember that company's name, but all these things are happening. So even if we somehow educate people, somehow educate, somehow take our admissions, do our classes through Zoom or other modes, or by transacting materials through the mail or Google Classroom, how are we going to place them? which is the industry who's going to take them? When industries are trying to disinvest in people, who are going to take this? So everything has to be remodeled, rethought of how it is going to make sense in the post COVID world. This is what I want to impress upon. This is the whole purpose of this presentation, if not anything, that we really have to have a power to think laterally. The new normal comes in the zone of lateral thinking, of repurposing, of space, manpower, and money. There may be other heads also. I've just written three so that it becomes easy for us to understand. Making people homebound also affected the supply chain. Supply chain is the only thing that will help us carry out our daily needs without hindrance in this consumeristic world, because we are dependent on shops. We do not have any kind of production facilities, as in backyard farming or farmhouses. Not many people, very meager, people have such facilities, and even if they have, they do not treat farmhouses as farmlands. It is recreation spaces for them. So all this goes to repurposing. Repurposing, I have put it in a big circle and separate in the space of lateral thinking and adaptability, so that it has to understood as a big quantity, which will help people to recoup from their losses after the pandemic is through, hopefully. Supply chain has two things. We have essential retail, like we saw. Liquor was something. I will be dealing with each of these important hashtags in the coming slides, but I'm just giving you a whole picture so that you understand where what connects with what. Essential retail was a buzzword which came up during the initial days of the pandemic, because what we usually used to buy did not make sense. So essential retail entailed tissue paper, which is toilet paper for the West, because that is a big concern for them. How do you clean yourself after you go for your primary activities in the beginning of the day? And for Indians and for the US, liquor was another one big concern, because uh, it might sound very funny, but understand this: people who are used to drinking, and for their as a daily activity, for their whatever needs, it may be their recreation, it may be because they're habituated to it, it may be to reduce stress of work and things like that. People used to consume liquor, and there has been isolated incident in where I live in Kerala, where people took their lives because maybe they were too dependent on those things. They had withdrawal symptoms or whatever. So liquor was something that was freely available in the US. They put it in the grocery stores also as a essential retail item. But here in India, that is still a debate because of our cultural values, probably, which has to be respected. So these are the give and takes that has been happening during this time. On the other hand, diametrically opposite to essential retail is the luxury market. I'm not going to comment much on that, because luxury, it seems, was a kind of highly volatile market which vaporized by the time the pandemic hit, because nobody was even talking about designer brands or purchases or shopping or the cyclic seasons of autumn, winter, or spring, summer, or what kind of style and grooming we need to go, because all kind of activities which engaged, which consumed these luxury, was had come to a halt, except in isolated incidents, irresponsible incidents in certain cases where birthday parties were celebrated, marriages were conducted, and it contributed to the spread of the pandemic. And even religious processions and the meetings are curbed because we need to be responsible for others. So luxury, which cater to that aspirational market, I would say, which is beyond satisfaction. It is your aspiration. What, beyond your desire is what you aspire. So it was a very high value market. It comes with a very high cost of production, but the fact is that it is produced by people who are not so economically fortunate or sustained, and because of that, the gap between the designers and the producers or the artisans has gaped much further in the luxury market. Luxury also, I would like to go further and say it is about recreation. It's slightly above our basic needs, and toward tending towards luxury. It is recreation, sports activity. I'm not talking essentially about exercise, gym, but if you want to play a game, go somewhere, have a duel with someone. All these are recreational activities, sports particularly. Then comes leisure. Leisure, you go out, you travel to places, tourism, you have adventures, you go trekking. All these are leisure activities, entertainment for that matter. And a whole lot of industry, including travel and transport, booking agents, Airbnb for that matter. All these things came to a grinding halt. Nothing is working. And these were high revenue earning industries for as far as the government is concerned. Everything is stopped at this point of time. Yes, thank you. So what happened is, when essential retail gained importance, luxury, you must understand this, essential retails are like our basic necessities of food, shelter, and clothes. Clothes nobody is even asking, because everybody is surviving with the kind of clothes they have already in stock. There's a famous if you have seen that movie, it's one of my favorites, Fight Club, which talks about consumerism in a big manner. In Fight Club, there is a dialogue where it says, "You are wearing leather garments which will last for the rest of your life. If you have one jacket of leather, it will probably last for the rest of your life. You needn't buy anything the next season." That is what uh, is being said, and it was endorsed by Patagonia, which is another company, which was a social responsible company, who launched a campaign. It was a very shocking campaign for the rest of the world, but they made sense. Patagonia showed a garment, a jacket, and Patagonia said, advertised, buy this jacket only if you need it. Only if you need it was, downsized in the end, but it was visible, very visible. It was not like the statutory warning on cigarette packets. But what they meant was, you be responsible in what you're buying. So please buy only if you need it. Buy this jacket. Don't buy this jacket if you don't need it. That was the message. Sorry. Don't buy this jacket was highlighted. Nobody would advertise anything like that. So all these things burn down to the fact that we require bare essentials for our survival. Everything else that we consume is built upon certain superficial ego-based consumer requirements. So this is one realization that I have digitally. We have been empowered to have our virtual experience economy up and running, because we have gig economy wherein you have people delivering at homes and contributing to the kind of loss that we have been experiencing in restaurants sometimes. There are social media platforms. I recently saw one a video where I think it was in Japan. The chef is delivering to select few people his choice of the cuisine. I'm really sorry, I don't remember the names. It was a box which had to be, and the chef usually is in front of these people while they eat it. He will explain what these things are. It is an experience. It contributes to the experience design economy, and he would explain the benefits of it, how to eat it, how to savor the taste in the exact manner. Like drinking wine has a different way of drinking than other liquor. So what this chef did is he came on screen and came on a group chat like this, and then he explained things, and people participated. So you are making up for what you have lost in the real life sense in the virtual experience economy. Gig economy is just delivering probably, or other services which is related with unicorns who have flooded the market in the past, I think 10 years, 15 years, starting from 15 years. So virtual experience economy is bound to grow. And why I say this is because we have seen how Mark Zuckerberg, the founder of Facebook, has invested so heavily in Geo, which is Mukesh Ambani's company, which means that, I mean, these are people who have very large visions, very long term visions, which means that the digital experience, the digital life is here to stay for a very, very long time, and it may transform the way we think and act in totally. We have no idea now because we have not gone through it, and this is contributing to the kind of breakdown of the centralization. There is no central. I mean, right from the beginning, I said, supply chain was causing. I'll read those things out in the particular slide. But if every activity of your life sustaining, everyday life sustaining needs is centralized, and if that centralized thing has a problem, then every activity of yours is going to be stuck. And people had very heavily invested in China because China was very profitable at that point of time, and it hit their supply chain so bad that people are immediately trying to retrieve whatever they can from China and then invest in other places, including India, if India is ready for it. And one fierce competition now which has emerged is not even Taiwan, it is Vietnam. Vietnam is really looking at taking China's share, and Vietnam has already offered to work with India, which is a good thing because the bilateral relations between these two countries are very strong. So decentralization, hyper local and hyper global. How do we at the same time be hyper local and hyper global? Hyper local is we have to rely on our supplies from our immediate neighborhood, which will cut down a lot of dependency on long distance logistics, transport. Only if in Kerala particularly, I live in Kerala, so in Kerala particularly, if the neighboring states of Karnataka, Tamil Nadu, and Andhra does not supply to Kerala, we are going to have a crisis. Kerala is a consumer state, highly consumer state. We have very, very little production. Even the coconuts that Kerala is very known for comes from Tamil Nadu. So it's an irony, but this is how it is. So decentralization of your needs and into making it into hyper global, hyper local, and hyper global. How? Through internet, through connectivity. You can reach anywhere. You can get any resource that you want. So this kind of managing things on your own has been on the rise, and it is going to stay, or it has to stay. Everything of this, we have seen beautiful pictures of the nature coming back to life. Ganga has become clean in spite of human beings trying to make it clean. It has never succeeded, but the Ganga has automatically become clean because human life has stopped functioning in the way it has been. So eco revival is happening, which is a big lesson for us. We often wonder if the corona is the virus, or we were the virus, because we have been doing so much of harm to this planet, and somehow corona was the cure for the human virus. Anyways, I don't intend to sound very dystopian in this presentation, but these are hard facts. So this, in essence, this is what I have put together from pieces of information that I've been collecting for the past, I think, two months in total since the lockdown, and worked on. I mean, listened to people talk on videos, multiple videos, and then including Raghuram Rajan, who made a lot of sense when he spoke. So this is how it is. Now I will try to break this down individually, going into details, which I already mentioned some of them in the presentation, I mean in my talk. I will read it out so that it becomes very clear. Physicality, the first and foremost biggest trend, megatrend I would call it, because it is affecting large changes worldwide. A person's physical presence is seen as a quantity that need to be expended with discretion. It is no longer a necessity, or it's no longer a thing that goes unsaid, or it happens automatically. Physical presence was a proof of privilege and accountability earlier. Like I said, if I am a employer, I need to know that my people are working for me in my place. I have them in control. But now it is a currency that incurs very high cost. A person's physical presence attracts costs of time, travel, which means that fuel and carbon footprint, fashion and styling, and physical coordination. Physical coordination is with the other team members. If there are two more people who are supposed to work with me on a project, and they are not available because, I mean, they can't work because I can't reach there on time, that is a physical coordination issue. This is a convention that has remained unchecked in spite of hyperconnectivity and access to communication platforms and electronics. I wouldn't say that we were running with this physical presence unnecessarily for a very, very long time, because the hyper connectivity only happened very recently, for Indians at least. It has been happening elsewhere, even before, even 10 years back, 20 years back. It has been happening, but it has been happening for Indians very recently. So I wouldn't say that we are very late in adopting these practices, but we are there. Establishment and maintenance of physical spaces, like I said, to run businesses may be revisited. Permanent office spaces may no longer be an essential capital for businesses to run. Retail spaces will require ambient wellness. Ambient wellness is a trend, or a predicted hashtag, which ensures that your space, imagine a retail space where I am going to go in, and that retail space has to ensure that my physical well-being is taken care of, which means that, very crudely put, I would say that they will ensure that I can wash my hands there, or the cleanliness or the maintenance of their spaces is in such a manner that I will not contract any kind of viruses if I go around that place touching it. Or so ambient wellness is something that retailers are looking at for their experience of retail space. If that holds true in the coming time, we still don't know. We have very little information at this point of time. Things are still evolving. People are working very hard around the clock, including all corporates, all companies that were giving a very delightful experience for the customers, and customers are responding to it in kind. So we have to sit back and wait for anything to be said conclusively at this point of time. Stringent protocols of testing and immunity certificates may discourage people from having physical interactions. Means what can be done virtually should not be done physically. This could be a proverb that could evolve in the post-COVID era. What can be, you say, do not send a man to do a woman's job, or woman to do man's job. So similarly, what can be done physically, what can be done virtually should not be done physically. Maybe this will become a very popular notion. Increased spending on automated workspace to decrease the instance of physical presence for health as well as sustain. Robotics, in very plain sense, robotics combined with artificial intelligence modules, will see, but this will see a lot of job losses in that area of skilled and semi-skilled labor force. Because if somebody was doing activity X, which is a repetitive activity in a assembly line of production, which can be replaced and which can be done by a robot, which like you've seen in Mercedes-Benz factories, everything is done by almost, there are only 5% people. 5% of the work is done by people, physical people who need to man the machines. So if such a thing comes, we might look at acute cut down of labor force there. And in places where workforce need to be employed, there will be a rise in the use of immunity passport. There are certain areas where humans cannot be replaced. This is the notion we have till now. Humans cannot be replaced. So in such places, you will have a rise of use of immunity passports and antibody tattoos. Antibody tattoo is ensuring that you have an antibody once the vaccine comes, and you have an antibody, and that you are sealed for that. It's a guarantee that you are corona proof, kind of thing. It sounds very science fiction, but it may soon happen. Human involvement may start getting limited to those spheres where empathetic judgment will be needed over data driven AI. That is the only place where human beings are required. Good example is teaching. You cannot probably mechanize teaching to a greater extent than it is already being done, because you need that human element of discourses, of discussions, of transactions between person to person, of experiences, of wisdom, so many things. I don't know. This is what I think now. Maybe there are things that will happen in the future that might challenge these notions. Let's wait and see. Homebound. Again, these are the last few slides in which I have just literally written down. These are insights which might sound very interesting to you, so I'll just read it one by one. Wherever there is a point of discussion, I'll discuss with you. This, I think we have overshot the time. This can mean you are bound at home or you are bound for home. Unfortunately, we have seen a lot of migrant exodus happening, and very, very painful sight to see them suffer like that. But that is one reality that is happening. Either I as a person is bound in home, within home, or people are wanting to go home, they are bound for home, are the two scenarios envisaged in this particular megatrend. For people who are bound at home and who have access to connectivity, they have transformed into a culture of working from home, which is WFH, which is already happening. It is speculated that work from home is a trend that is going to stay. We have seen in the first slide, you remember, somebody has said that the work culture may radically change. It's a trend that is going to stay. The cost of being physically present may be comparatively lesser in terms of spending as well as in health risks. We have discussed this. I'm not going to go on and on. Businesses, education, gig economy can all function from home. So we may see a rise in screen attendance. These are things that become fashionable or become a daily, you know, routine work for us. Screen attendance, attending through screen or being present on the screen. Home studio solutions. If I am sitting here, for example, right now I'm sitting in a cubicle at NIFT, which is not my cubicle. This is an empty cubicle, which I chose because the light was there. There's some power issues. So if I have to do this on a longer timeline from home, I would probably set up my studio with ambient lighting and good speaker systems. No echo will be ensured. So setting up a home studio solution may rise if we continue to be working from home and with screen attendance. Screen grooming could be quite different from outdoor grooming, because the needs that you need to the needs for grooming yourself while you go out, like sunscreens and other so many things, may not apply to you when you are sitting at home, and when you are in an artificially lit space, or if it is direct sunlight also, the needs will be quite different. So screen grooming could be one emerging trend. Home fitness is already there, has already been there, which may grow gain in relevance, because they're trying to make up for the lack of gym by setting up things at gym, setting a gym at home. this is already there. I don't think this is a very new trend, but this is going to grow. The kind of purchases and the kind of solutions they need will be more. Online gambling, it is already started. We have seen the very recently trending rummy game, which is happening online. Online gamble may get big, and the kind of transaction through internet also may get big. Personal adult entertainment. We normally know this as pornography, but personal adult entertainment has also grown. It has always grown from, I think, since the inception of internet. But right now, it also adds to the kind of, I mean, it is also because symptomatic of the stress that people are undergoing. The consumption has risen, overshot, it's broken all records, is what we can understand. Then we have DIY concept, do it yourself concepts, which we have been doing as a hobby, but now we are doing it as a routine. This has enabled people to relook at things that they used to purchase. What we can make at home needn't be purchased at all. This kind of ideas have come into a space, and there is better empathy. There is better connection to what you make, and you do not waste it much. So all these kind of positive and hopeful trends are being seen, or indications are emerging, what we call as tendencies. Home recipes, it's been trending. I mean, very peculiar things in home recipes, that a lot of people are making were making banana cakes. Now banana cakes, why people were making, according to one analysis, was that in the beginning, when people did a lot of hoarding, thinking that these things are going to run out very fast, um, they bought a lot of supplies which was not used, because the stress level came down, the panic buying stopped, and they realized that this is not going to stop coming. So what happened, there was a lot of bananas probably, which is perishable, which gets easily ripened. So people started making banana cakes. So this was a trend. Then there is something called easy clickbait. Easy, if you find easy, 5 easy ways to make this, or easy ways to reduce your tummy, and things like that. Easy has been a clickbait in this particular um, period, because people wanted to do some quick things that satiates their urges, and then give them some kind of satisfaction, what do we call, gratification. So this is all related with mind. Then we have anxiety, we have sexual abuse, we have domestic violence, because people are shut in, and nobody can reach out, and nobody can even uh, go out. If somebody is suffering this kind of things, they can't even go out. So these are sociopathic responses that has happened. Digital, we have everything connected digitally. Large businesses are rapidly converting into virtual mode, and small retailers are trying to adapt to the new calling. Mark Zuckerberg buying stakes 9.9% of Geo's is huge in terms of, if you look at the size of what Geo is. Social response to lockdown has shown a sharp increase in the consumption of video conferencing platforms like Zoom. I think Zoom rose to 300% revenue in the very limited time of it, not even a quarter. It was a time of about 2 months, within 2 months. And Google Meet, we have Google Hangouts, and social behavior has been evolving since breaking conventions like getting married, attending funeral, and performing mass churches through video conferencing. All this has been happening, and businesses who have invested in such platforms are making money. I'll make it rather fast, because I think my battery is also running down. Okay. Um, then we have virtual experience economy. Digital, making everything digital enables virtual experience economy. We have event cancellations, video conference happenings, homeschooling, telemedicine, home entertainment, shop streaming, mentor to protege, virtual companion. Can I just get my charger, Shraddha? Can I just 2 minutes? Can I break the presentation?
Sure,
I'll
sir.
just get my charger because I think it is too low.
So if any of the participants have any questions, kindly put them in the chat box.
And they can put up even their reflections, what they think about this.
Yes, sure, sir.
Sorry about that. We have virtual experience economy, which means that everything that we do on the virtual space through connectivity, homeschooling, telemedicine, home entertainment, shop streaming, mentor to prestige is a rising thing. It has been rising ever since I think 2000s, the new millennium. It is an idea. It's a concept where you have your the prestige. Prestige is your protege or protege, you call it, is someone whom you mentor on a very personal basis. So that connection with the mentor and the protege is more stronger when it comes to this concept M2P, because this can be done by anyone who has a degree. You needn't have a job in a place. If a person is good enough to guide a person, the protege in a stream like fashion, for example, or architecture, or home decor, small, not highly technical industries for the time being. So this kind of a relationship between the learner and the teacher has been evolving. This is looked at right now. My son is taking tuition from a teacher who is sitting in Mumbai. So it is a very not an apt definition of it. It's still tuition, but then look at the connectivity that we are having. Somebody sitting in Mumbai is taking classes for a person who is sitting in, and this is not isolated incident. This is going to increase, and this is going to occupy a larger share of space in education, is what is projected. Virtual companion, it still looks like science fiction, but there are, if we put ourselves out of a very Indian mindset and look at things that happen in other places like US, where people are more independent and to an extent self-centered, you'll see how important it is to have a virtual companion for you, who will greet you, who will wish you when you come back, and pretend as if they like you, which is all programmed. But then when you do it with the help of AI, it becomes very lively. If you have seen this movie called She or Her, HER, starring Joaquin Phoenix, you'll get what I'm trying to say. Then there are virtual status symbol. It is not evolved as yet, but we do take pride in saying that we belong to the Twitter, or we belong to Instagram. I do have presence in Instagram. I mean on Facebook. All these things have been seen as not a status symbol, but this may become status symbol because a good part of our life is going to be spent on screen and in on the internet. So these things may become a status symbol. Supply chain, I'm not going to talk about it anymore because everything about China and decentralizing and hyper localizing supply chain I've dealt with, I've already spoken, so I'm not going to say that again. I hope you understand. Repurposing is a zone which you have seen on the bottom left hand corner, is a thing that nobody has actually till now taken serious thought of. I mean, Shraddha would probably understand what I'm trying to say, because we have engaged in an activity called scamper in the under the banner of lateral thinking, under the education background. I know many of you may have gone through it. I'm sorry if I am trying to sound like as if you don't know it. That is not the idea. But uh, lateral thinking has enabled businesses as a practice, as a very isolated modular activity of reinventing their practices or revisiting their practices from time to time. But it has never been seen as a solution provider for radically uh, you know, radical changes like this. So while we repurpose, for example, I'll try to give you an example and then say that scuba diving masks have been repurposed by a person to make ventilators. He was rising to the situation. He cut parts of scuba diving mask and repurposed it as ventilators. We have seen that Armani, which again is coming in another slide. Armani is the biggest brand. Armani, Giorgio Armani, who is still a legend, in living legend in the area of fashion. He is repurposing himself because, like I told you, luxury has hit an absolute loss. Luxury in the sense of consumables in fashion, and he is being philanthropic enough. He know that that is not going to sustain him, but he's being philanthropic enough, repurposing himself and his brand to be more relevant in the time by creating masks, making masks. And these masks may be made by any normal person, and even a tailor can do it. Why would Armani do it is a question we may ask. But this is the way in which people are repurposing themselves. It is also, please understand that assisted development is not about technology. Assisted development is about those categories of people who are marginalized, like LGBTQ and other queer society, who have not been included in the bigger activity or picture of society. But it was very surprising to see that the transgender community has really uh, been on the street helping people cope with COVID. I had a clipping, I mean, I had a screenshot from which I have taken this information. So assisted development is going to be a big economy in the coming days because their acceptance have been widespread for the past 20 to 25 years around the world. So these category of people who were marginalized till now from the society because they did not fall into or did not want to fall into a gender of man or woman, or now we have a small column for others because why we have not added more columns is because there may be a range of mindsets. So we have already woken up for this range of mindsets, and we have seen that it is in embracing these diversities in even psychological or physical manifestation of human beings that the sustainable future lies in. So these are all things people realized when they had time to sit back and think. Well, before this, we were running, literally running every day from pillar to post to sustain a kind of superficial life. I'm not trying to sound very philosophical here, but then this is exactly what it was. Right now, we realize, when luxury is not there, when so many things except your food and basic activity of talking to people is there, some of us are happy. I mean, we don't miss much. So e-commerce is again automated commerce. It may see a rise because it reduces the dependency on people who may get sick. It may create job loss you know, it may create job losses. But when such a problem comes, we have always survived by coping up to that and creating remedial measures for that. This is how human beings have always been on a very long timeline of human history. never in the history has human beings been obliterated or decapacitated by any big pandemic. We have always learned to survive. So these are ways in which we repurpose and we learn to survive. Deep inquiry, like I said, biotechnology, new safety laws, new SOPs, surveillance. We are submitting to surveillance. We have antibody tattoos. We have immunity passports. Biothermal detection. Like biometric detection. We may have biothermal detection to know whether you have a symptom of a fever or something like that, which will go. There are also good habits returning. No matter how many times we ask people not to spit on the streets, people used to spit, but now spitting will invite trouble. So spitting in public has probably stopped, and it is highly difficult for a community like India because of the pan chewing culture. We cannot deprive people of that, but we may have to find out newer ways of doing it. So good habits return: spitting in public, finger licking not counting. This might sound very funny, but then this is accepted norm across um, uh, many places. I don't think it is solely in India, but then these things will stop. And we are submitting to deep inquiry that which we used to fear earlier. We are willingly submitting to deep inquiry, that people can get into our privacies and ask us questions and then inquire where we were, with whom we were, and what we were doing. Everything can be asked. Essential retail, which I have said. One thing which I want to say, that it was a Dutch prime minister's promise. He came on TV and promised the public that there were enough toilet paper in stock in the country to last for the next decade. So these are very unusual kind of responses from statesmen. Statesmen never talk about toilet papers, but understand that when he is doing that, it means that people have come to a level where these things have started mattering to them most than any other issues that used to happen in the country. They're going to bare essentials, bare necessities. uh, some of the responses that people had till now, it is not very clear. One of it is, in parts of USA, people were seen queued outside ammunition shops, guns and bullets and gunpowders. Were they planning to arm themselves against mob fighting over food and other provisions? Because this is what we see in post-apocalyptic movies like zombies and scrambling over food, and then having to take your own stand and then surviving. Was it because of that? We don't know. Or were they thinking of finding game, which is going for hunting and shooting animals to compensate for this food shortage? We don't know. But this was a phenomena which was observed, and we cannot rule out that because nothing happened after that. Hoarding was a common phenomena. Liquor, like we spoke. Then was video gaming. Video gaming is a very good activity to stay indoors for hours together, so without knowing. All these are also can be termed as in-flight behavior, because when you are on a very long haul flights, from spanning 18 hours, 10 hours, 22 hours, you have nothing else to do but sit. You sit, and every time you get up, the flight attendant will come and tell you, sir, please be seated. So this is highly distressing. The only way you can get out of it is by consuming liquor. So this was probably an in-flight behavior which manifested because of the lockdown. Luxury loss, we said, merchandising, events, and influencers. Fashion influencers have nothing to do now. Film stars, they have nothing to do now. They are sitting at home. They don't wear fancy clothes and make influence the decision of people to buy anything. So suddenly all these things came to a grinding halt. Why I say it is a grinding halt is it is exactly that. It all stopped. It is highly volatile. uh, and on the other side, we see on a larger thing, when we look at all these hashtags, we'll understand how hard the economy is hit and how much of revenue loss is happening for the government, what we call the fiscal. And areas of entertainment and leisure and recreation was hit. Event management, understand show hosting, travel and tourism, taxis, buses, trains, flights, cruise ships, hotels, restaurants, gyms, swimming pools, particularly, stadiums, malls, multiplexes, and discos. Everything that we used to engage in has come to a halt. The new normal mandates ambivalent wellness, which you have mentioned, and Dubai has tried to repurpose themselves by converting or initiating drive-in theaters. You can I saw a video wherein you can take your car inside a large space like a stadium and then park it in your designated parking space. You'll have like seat numbers, you'll have your parking numbers, and you can buy your coke, your popcorn, everything that you want to eat while in the car itself, where a masked attender will come and supply you these things, and you have to see it on a big screen. It's a very rudimentary level, because I found that the screen was not very well visible because of light from other side. In theaters we usually turn off the lights. So but it's a beginning. We can't say how it is going to eventually happen. Eco revival, the last slide. And this is something we said, nature rebounded after the lockdown. Air, water, and land cleansed itself. Animals started roaming around on streets, finding no human beings to disturb them. All these are very shy creatures. Many governments have already started working to mitigate the effects on nature on reopening the economy by having rules in the use of cars and other things and other activities that would impact the climate. So that's one good thing that happened, because no other way we would have understood the kind of benefit that we will have if we stopped what we were doing. We would never be able to understand it. Only if somebody put a gun to our head and asked us to stop, which the virus did, we understood these things that would happen. So there is a renewed push for cleaner technologies. I think 2020 Mahindra was supposed to launch their electric cars, but somehow I don't know when it is going to happen. So people are pushing for cleaner technologies. We have a lesser dependency on petroleum. Petroleum has, that is something else which was in the news. America has so much of reserve of oil that they don't need anything more, because it is not being purchased by people. Their tanks are full. And as a routine, Saudi was sending their ships to America with full of oil, because they need to sell their oil also to sustain their economy. Otherwise, they have nothing. Saudi has nothing. Entire Middle East survives on petroleum. If petroleum is stopped, it's like cutting their windpipe. So America has issued an order for these people to turn about and then go back. But news is that they're still proceeding, because they have independent company in America which they can operate with the oil. They probably can sell it at a more competitive price. And if they do it, that will create unnecessary tension. So you see how politics also comes in between this. There's a lot of things to say in politics, but I purposely did not touch that, because it will become very it will take a lot of mind space, and that it is better to see it in this manner. Politics is always hitting us. We don't have to go looking for it. So I think this was a better way. And in certain parts, this is not a response of COVID, but it had happened before also. Flixstam is something that happened in Switzerland. Flixstam means flight shaming. They have a sense of empathy towards nature, and what they have trended is to travel in a flight is a matter of shame, because you are expending so much of it. Like what Greta Thunberg did. She sailed for 15 days rather than take a flight of 5 hours to reach a place. And probably she's a child. We all laugh at her. I mean, not all of us, but some of us do not have respect for her. Some people shame her by saying many things. But that child had some kind of wisdom to understand that traveling for 15 days, maybe it is not practical. I don't know. Till now, we cannot say that. 15 days is better than burning so much of fuel in 5 hours. So flight flex time is flight shaming. It literally means flight shaming, flight shame. So people are, if people travel in flight, they feel that they are doing so. There's a conscious of guilt that they're flying. Green pressure. This adds to the green pressure to go everything that is sustainable and green. Eco status and eco shame. These are two things that has been happening on the internet and all kind of public relation platforms. We used to get be proud of displaying an eco status, like I'm using sustainable thing, I'm using that, I'm using this, but that is no longer trending. It is understood that you should do it, so there's no longer any value to you're displaying your eco status. Now is the time for eco shame. Eco status is understood, but that means everybody has to do it. Now, if somebody doesn't do it, we ask, why are you not doing it? So that is eco shame. So we have reached eco shame level. And KLM is a flight company, and it has even advertised, you have to fly responsibly. If flight is not required, you don't fly. That is what they were doing. This is all before the pandemic. It is not a repercussion of the pandemic. So, but eco revival, we have really understood that it is possible if we just sit back and then, don't be mindless. Don't spend things mindless, including fuel, including money, and all that. If we just sit back and then think and then use our resources wisely, we have enough resources, enough food, enough land to sustain even 10 billion people. It is because 20% of the people are using 80% of the resource, and 80% of the people are using 20% of the resource. That is the problem in this balance, not because of population. That has been clearly. I want you to look at Hans Rosling, HANSROSLING. Hans Rosling. He's a professor of economics. He's no more, but his videos are on YouTube. You please look at it. You'll see how the myth of overpopulation is being busted by him in a very nice manner, illustrative manner, in a very graphical manner. So he's always positive in that sense. So this sums up our presentation. I hope you understood the gamut of activities that we spoke about. The emphasis on this presentation is that individual people, physicality, individual people have to be responsible. Even if they are staying home, they have to be responsible. Even if they are politicians or normal subjects, they have to be responsible to the duties that they have to perform during the COVID and post-COVID. If there are things, if corporates are those people who, the physical people in the corporates who are making their decisions, they must understand that 10% annual growth is not a thing that is, there's a convention that need to be followed. Maybe there are other ways of understanding it. Economists have now said that maybe this is a time to relook at what we were thinking about it, to capture all the market, become the best in the market. Maybe these things have to be relooked at. I'm not saying that excellence should not be pursued, but there are so many callings that has happened during this time that exhort us, that really compels us to look at the way we have been functioning. So post-COVID era is a very hypothetical, very superficial and science fiction era that we are looking at, which will soon materialize. It will precipitate into something that is more tangible very soon, hopefully. But the virus is expected to remain with us for a longer time. We have to live with it. We have to manage it. Like at a point of time, we were managing polio or smallpox or chickenpox. So let us be responsible. Like you say, right now the mantra is stay home, stay safe. But let us also be sensible. Let us try to look at a thing and not believe everything that we see. Let us try to analyze it, read between the lines, and see in what positive way we can contribute to the world to make it a better place. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. So, since we are running really short of time, we'll just be taking one question. And sir, could you just inform how the other participants can contact you for questions? Because there are a few.
You can write to me. I have your, I mean, I've given you my phone number. Phone won't be a good idea unless and until you're WhatsApping. You can write to me on my, this is my personal mail ID, or you can Instagram me. You can talk to me there also. Twitter, I'm a very recent entrant, so I wouldn't say that it is a good place right now. It's only for me to keep watch of the things that is happening around. I just want to be there. It's not for publicity or connecting with people. So, but if you want to come in, please come in. So these are my contact details. I would be very much interested in knowing your views. If there is anything to be added, please do send me and discuss with me. I think the time is late now, so if there is any question you can ask, I mean, one or two.
Okay, sir. So one of the questions that we've got is that work from home and study from home has drastically changed for everyone.
Yeah.
Any insights on how can we cope up with all the change?
See, there are a lot of give and takes in working and studying from. Working may not be that problematic, but studying from home or doing your academics schooling from home is problematic because for two reasons. First of all, the kind of education that you've had, the kind of mode that you've been had is quite different, and it will take some time for you to cope up with it. We don't know how that is going to happen, but eventually we will make it happen. But there is a lack of social life there. We learn a lot from the interaction that we have in the classrooms. Questions, sometimes observations, all these things are missing when we are looking at on a screen which probably does not give you much insight except what the person is looking into or a person is wearing at that point of time. So there are a lot of lack of observation that goes into online mode of education. Having said that, I would also say that we don't know what the new normal is going to be. Is the new normal going to be more screen time and less of interaction, which which case I don't think you're not missing on anything. So it is too early to actually say what are the insights that can be given. Basically, it is to um do the best that you can in that mode. It is very, very difficult. I have tried teaching. My Shraddha knows it. My mode of teaching is discussions. Basically, it is a conversation. I have to sit with people. I have to listen to them first, and then I have to speak my mind. And I have to reserve those comments which will hinder them from making a judgment or an opinion, which will bias them of that. I cannot do that. So all these are things. When I am into the class, I first talk to the class to understand the level they are in, and then slowly, bring them to a level where they and I can converse. But that may not happen in a online mode. So what I would suggest is make best use of this platform in however you can. But eventually we will learn how to do it. At this point of time, nobody can say, nor me, nor anybody who is too brilliant can say how this is going to work out. So let us go with the flow. We are making history as we speak. So let us go with the flow and do best of what we can at this point of time. That's what I would say.
Okay, thank you, sir. So rest of the participants can either email or Instagram their queries. Sorry, because we are running late of time, running short of time. Thank you all for joining. On 23rd May, we have a session by Mr. Sanjay Reddy, founder Redditon Studio and co-founder at Designex Studio and a published illustrator. Kindly join us for the session. With that, we will close today's session. I would like Sambhav sir to kindly convey.
Thank you, Mr. Ansar, for giving such an insightful talk. In fact, you talked about almost every facet of life and the systems. So that was quite good. I also personally feel that post-lockdown, our life is going to be much eco-friendly and people-friendly. The transportation, dependence on transportation would be less, more of telecommunication would take place. Local technologies and local systems will evolve. So that was quite insightful, quite good for all of us. And we are going to store your talk also and upload on our site also. So thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks a lot.
Yeah. So, I would like to thank UPID for giving me this opportunity, as it is a very wonderful. I mean, I wish I could see the participants and then engage in active conversation. But then, like I said, I like conversations. But it's okay. You can please write to me or WhatsApp me on this number. And thank you so much for being here today. Stay home, stay safe. Bye.
Thank you, sir. With that, we close today's session. Thank you all for participating.